lounging, son.
Welcome back to the Comic Lounge. My name's Ryan, and 'tis the season to be talking about Christmas comics. I love reading, comic books that are themed, especially for holidays. I mean, there's so many great Halloween ones, so many great, I had such a blast doing that for the month of October. Wanted to do the same thing for December. Talk some Christmas comics. There's a lot. In the long history of comics, there's so many different, this one we're going to be talking about today is the Hellboy Christmas special. I seeked this out for the longest time. I just could not find a decent copy. Was able to get one, and I have to say I absolutely love it. There's going to be 3 stories in here. Mike Mignola, Gary Gianni, C. Purcell, Jeff Darrow. Great creative team. Great list of creators, and love this fucking black and white cover by Gary Gianni. Absolutely phenomenal. I love the line work on here, just the straight black and white, super effective against and then the Hellboy logo in red. I just absolutely love it. This is from all the way back in '97. I feel like maybe this, I can't remember if I've read this. I mean, I've read so many Hellboy stories there, but I can't remember if this Christmas Underground has been reprinted anywhere. That's the lead story. We get Ernie's Holiday Ditty by Steve Purcell, Strange Story by Jerry Gianni, Christmas double page by Jeff Darrow, Toy Box by Steve Purcell, Corpus Monstrum and a Gift for the Wicked by Jerry Gianni, and further reading list by Mike Mignola. I love this. It's set in England, 1989, Christmas Eve, and there's an old woman. She's not going to live through the night, and Hellboy is coming to investigate something. And the doc leaves back in the morning, and Hellboy goes and talks to this priest, and he kind of gives a little bit of backstory, Mrs. Hatch, the house stood empty for years, and, when she took it over, it was a grim day. She came with her husband, her entire family, brother, 3 children, and, they point out Annie that's in the middle, and, she was the favorite, and one day, the priest said how he told them to send her away, but they wouldn't have it. Her imagination was too much for this place. And so she kept wandering alone out in the cemetery at night. And I love this even, saying it, that there's stones in place older than any Christian grave. So obviously that's going to be the impetus for okay, what happened to her? She obviously disappeared, because of those stones. And she's been gone for years. And there's been a doom on the house since. Doom is what the priest says, and he makes sure to emphasize that, and so each family member slowly, one after another, is dying. I love that Hellboy tells her to just go fix himself a drink, and he's gonna go see her. You can see that the priest is just he knows he should have done something more, and he's living in regret. So we go to see Mrs. Hatch, and she's dying, and as she talks to Hellboy, he asks if there's anything he can do. And she's like, oh, there's a little box on the mantelpiece for her baby Annie. She comes and visits me at night, And so, obviously she's on the verge of death. So now, and I've often heard that, people that are close to dying will often see their loved ones that have passed. And it's kind of a signal that the end is near. Kind of like a hint at that. At least that's how I took it. And she asks him to promise to take the box to Annie. And she says yes. And I love these 3 panels. She's like, asking Hellboy, you thought I didn't recognize you, huh? He's like, what? And he's like, what? And she's like, you're Father Christmas. So she's looking at him as if he's Father Christmas. Kind of a cool little thing to kind of add to the Christmas feeling for this story. They go out to the cemetery, and, Hellboy is remembering, what the priest said about these stones. So he immediately goes and destroys it and finds out that there's an underground tunnel. And we have this little rat that's saying beware. I love oh, what the hell is this? And then he sees this doorway to where we don't know, and it's we immediately get this contrast of this dark, gloomy kind of coloring, and then we get this bright room that he's entering. Annie's here, and she keeps calling out these names of famous characters in literature: Quixote, Lancelot, or maybe de Bergerac. Toppled from the moon. Nope, just me, he says. And she's like, well, you're welcome to stay a little while. And asks why he, have you come far? He's, no, not really. Hungry. And she's like, oh, the others will love to see you. Who? And the prince will come. Are you? And then he says, are you Anne Hatch? And this is where, he's talking and this is where Annie kind of says, oh, that's what my mother calls me. And she lives a long way from here in a terrible cold house. I used to live there. And then she talks about playing in a secret garden and where she would play with Pooh and the rabbit and the Cheshire Cat. Again, characters from literature. So I find that interesting. Like, is this kind of what she was doing? Like, her imagination was running wild. Maybe she was a little crazy. I'm not sure. I feel like she wasn't, but she keeps calling out these characters in literature, and he does talk about her imagination and how people thought she was strange because of it. She gets led down into this hole in the ground. A soothing voice called her out from the dark and asks her to be his bride. And she asks who he is, second son of a king. And that's all he would say. And so he marries her, right? But like, obviously he's some sort of a demon. Now she's trapped there. And then one by one, as they die, they come to visit, she says. Super creepy. Like, again, like they're underground in this thing, and like this, basically like a child kidnapping by like an evil entity. She's like, dinner's prepared. I hear the others coming. They're hungry. And then we get these different family members, but Hellboy whips out that gift, hands her the present, and what is it? It's a cross. Merry Christmas, he says. And immediately everything takes a turn. We see the shroud of this like happy heavenly place, this kingdom that she's come to live in, and it's immediately bursting up in flames, and we're seeing that these family members are all, dead, demonic looking. Hellboy attacking them. I love this, like, we get the panels here, but then we get just like the stark white with nothing in color but the gold ring, and slowly it turns into this snake lizard type thing, which is how I'm assuming that was how he was able to hold sway over Annie. Just I love this story. I love Mignola's art. I mean, I really can't remember if I've read this before. I feel like maybe it hasn't been collected, or I don't have the collection that has it. Such a great Hellboy story. I love these like one and done tales, and Mignola does these in such fantastic fashion. I love the long form storytelling that he does within, he'll do 2 issue, 3 issue, 4 issue, 5 issue arcs, whether it was like back in the day with the Hellboy books, or now it's Hellboy BPRD. But this one-off is just so fantastic. And he basically purges the demonic entity from Annie and from this house, and now he had left this like stake for the priest to kind of like kill, or to take care of Mrs. Hatch, I guess. And he's saying a prayer over her, and he's like, come on, dude, now the demon's over here, and now he's got to fight him, and boom, get some more good fighting. And I love this, because as I was reading it, I could hear the boom, boom, and that's all that's happening. This is all taking place underground, and you just keep seeing it, right? Like, you pan out, you see him throw the first punch, then you see him get hit, and then we're just seeing the rocks coming, and then you just keep seeing rock going. You see the priest looking off into the distance. He comes, and there's now a crack in the ground because of what was taking place underneath. And Annie comes to visit her mom. Don't be afraid, I'm with you now, she says. And now they're both going off into the next plane of existence. The demon and is still fighting with Hellboy. And I like how he calls out, like, big monster like you just pick on little girls, right? Son of a... And then all of a sudden we hear the church bells going, and the demon is like instantly thrown back in, because again, it's, it's almost like the same feeling as the cross, where it's like you can't fight against it. And Hellboy's lines, guess he should have stayed underground. And now Mrs. Hatch is dead. He's like, and the priest's like, I couldn't do those things to her, the wooden stake and the cutting, I'm sorry. And now the house is lit afire, and he's like, nope, just let it go. It's the best thing for it. Let it burn. And I love this, great little ending. She's a nice old lady. She saved her little girl, and she thought I was Santa Claus. So Merry Christmas, Mrs. Hatch, wherever you are. And a great little story, dude. Then we get this little one-pager by Steve Purcell of Sam and Max fame. He's gone on to do a lot of stuff with Pixar. So very cool to see this here. Little poem. And then we get a little story by Jerry Gianni thinking about what he was going to do in this book. And a lot of like weird coincidences happen with the year 1870 and how those numbers kept appearing to him, and it has a lot to Charles Dickens. So this is a cool little story here. Great double page by Jeff Darrow. Love this stuff. The amount of detail he puts into his art is just insane. And we get a cool story continuing from where that poem was by Steve Purcell. This creepy little girl and her mouse that's going around. We get this spider coming around. The mouse attacks the spider, and then as it goes forward and you see it like hissing and stuff, something is going to come out of it, and it ends up being Santa. Pretty funny story. Cool one-off. Again, these aren't tied into Hellboy, but nice that we get to get some like different types of stories within this Hellboy Christmas special and see some artists that I don't think worked within the Hellboy world at that point. So very cool to see that. And then we get this Gary Gianni story, which goes to straight black and white. Love this line work. They're going up to this house of Grodak, and it's plagued too many too long, they say. And now they're and this guy with his like weird like helmet from a suit of armor, just kind of weird. They go up to this house, super creepy, and they come across these like demon type or like these weird creatures that have no head, but their head's on their stomach and stuff. Children of the Beast, they call them. Maybe they're elementals, and they attack them. And as this guy's attacking him because they're in the, they're in astral form. His body gets absorbed and stuff. And then how are we gonna tie it into Christmas? We're gonna get a visit from this Santa-like guy, and he comes and he's like, "Oh, I'll take those," and takes them on their way. And he tells them he's going to take them up to the north and maintain them until such time when the human race can bear their responsibilities. So cool little story. I don't want to like get too much into the weeds on that one because for the most part really wanted to talk about the Hellboy story, but didn't want to completely ignore the other stories because they're great, wonderful art. This great list by Mignola for further reading. Obviously, he's going to have the Christmas Carol, a new Christmas Carol, and some cool other ghost stories to further look into that have to do with Christmas. So very cool. Loved this issue. Fantastic. Highly recommend. If you can find a copy, I know it's expensive, but if you can find one, go pick it up. Make sure you check out the rest of the stuff on the channel. Check out the rest of the Christmas stuff that's going to be coming up, and make sure you like, follow, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you're notified every time a new vid drops. And on that note, I'm out.